a few months ago, I received some bad boy sleeves from Pro Tracker Archery. When I first received the bad boy sleeves from Pro Tracker, I, being kind of an archery obsessed nerd about my arrows and FOC, I was honestly a little hesitant and skeptical about the idea. My two concerns when trying the Pro Tracker bad boy sleeves were first that the arrow would not fly straight out of the center of my bow, and that it would change the tune of my bow. My second concern was that I really would not have the same impact point as without the Pro Tracker sleeve. So arrow tuning is something that is super important for a Western hunter. So when you tune your arrows or tune your bow, what you're doing is you are making sure that your draw is nice and even. And the idea is that when your arrow leaves the rest, that it leaves through the center of your bow. Tuning your arrow means typically that when you go to start shooting broadheads, that your arrow flight is nice and straight. You don't have any tail kicks or wobble in your flight. So what happens if you do have any of those, typically, if you are a very consistent and precise archer, is that it could potentially change your accuracy and or precision. Accuracy meaning that when you shoot an arrow at a target, it's going to hit the spot at which you were aiming. And precision meaning your grouping. So if your groups are nice and tight, typically that the tuning of your bow has a lot to do with that. And if you're not nice and precise, then typically there might be a tuning issue and or a shooter issue, which can happen to all of us. What I saw with the arrow flight, and I have a little video that's showing the arrows flying both with my Pro Tracker on and without the Pro Tracker on my hunting arrows, was that the flight was nearly the same. So all arrows, when they fly in slow motion, you'll see that they have a certain amount of wag in them. The arrow flexes, that goes along with the spine of your arrow, and that is normal. So the flatter your trajectory, the less flexation in there, the better with your arrows. So what I saw, at least at 20 yards, was that there was not a lot of like tail kicking or kicking off to the side, which could make your arrow hit the target weird, or could change that. My fear that it would change the flight due to having a different diameter was surprisingly shown to be not true, at least with the 3 arrow setups that I tried. So I tried 3 different arrow setups. I tried the Pro Tracker with actually some of the Pro Tracker arrows. I tried them with my hunting arrows, which are Arachnid Archery neurotoxins. And I tried them with some Easton Hex arrows with the following caveat. So I manage, I guess, engineer my arrows. So my Easton Hex that I had been hunting with previously actually had a brass insert in them. So the FOC was already quite high. So if you have an high FOC arrow already, I did have to change that, but without the brass insert in there, the Easton Hex arrows did exactly what I was expecting as far as flight to the target. So FOC, so front of center. So that is where the center point is in your arrow. So if you have your arrow, it's typically written in percentages. So where your FOC, your front of center, that's how far in front of the center of your arrow the balance point is. So FOC is something that is widely debated, and archers have a lot of opinions about it. But what I have found personally, when I went to a higher FOC arrow, putting more weight in the front of my arrow, I get better penetration. I have gotten better pass-throughs on animals. I also see when I go shoot with my friends who pull 70 or 65 pounds versus my 55 pounds, typically my arrow is the hardest one to pull out. What that means in terms of like momentum is that they are keeping the momentum when they hit the target, which is going to translate to having better penetration, which is a problem that a lot of lighter, lower poundage archer has have. I know when I started, my first arrows, I think were, I'm trying to think, 279 grains. And I actually hit an animal in the shoulder and it bounced off because I didn't have enough poundage, enough FOC. I truly believe if I had more weight or heavier arrow, that I would have gotten better penetration on that arrow, on that animal. My second area of concern was, the claim. So the Pro Tracker claim, if you go on their website or if you watch the videos, is that at 20 yards, you can put this sleeve on the front of your arrow, adding 125 grains to the tip of your arrow. This is a significant amount of weight to add to the front of your arrow, and expect no change in the flight. I was skeptical at first, but having tried the sleeves with 3 arrows out of my bow, 2 arrows out of my backup bow, I've had friends shoot them. I have been pleasantly surprised, as long as your arrow already isn't high FOC, that at 20 yards, your impact point, so the point on the target where your arrow is hitting, is the same, which is great for those, I would say more like an Eastern hunter or someone who's hunting out of a blind. You know you're not going to take more than a 20-yard shot if that's what you practice. I haven't practiced it further than 20 yards, so I don't want to make any claims about that. But at 20 yards, out of a tree stand, out of a blind, uphill, downhill, I have seen the same impact point with several different arrows, adding the Pro Tracker sleeve to the front of the arrows. So what this means is for a lower poundage hunter, someone shooting out of a tree stand, it's my understanding that a lot of people, Eastern hunters, and maybe this is untrue, they're not as concerned with tune. If you're shooting out of a tree stand, shooting flat, it's not as concerning as out west when you're going to be shooting uphill and downhill, through different ranges, and at farther away ranges. So if you're looking to hit that 6-inch circle kill shot on a deer, it's not as concerning if your arrow flight is a little bit off. I did not see that. I saw my arrows hitting within my range of error, which would be within about a quarter at 20 yards, that they were hitting with the Pro Tracker sleeve in the same spot. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with the Pro Tracker Bad Boy sleeve as a product. I think this could be a great product, especially for new hunters. If you're working up in your draw weight and you want to get that little bit of better penetration, make a more ethical shot. We all know, if you are a bow hunter, if you don't get that full pass through, say the arrow sticks in the other shoulder or it sticks in the animal, that oftentimes you don't get a good blood trail. So having better penetration is going to give you that good blood trail. They're not going to bleed all into the chest cavity, where you won't be able to track them. So overall, this is a product I would definitely recommend for that new hunter who is going to be shooting shorter distances, and really wants to bow hunt, but is concerned about the ethics, about how much penetration that they are going to get.